let me just say that we appreciate all of you for being here. And well, it is the last final hours of our day 4 unconference. And I just want to thank you, Emily, for going this journey with me. And somehow we managed to get some of the leading experts on ageism and older entrepreneurship in one conference. And we've got two of the most influential organizations for people over 50 involved, AARP and uh, Next Avenue. So, hi everyone. I'm sorry I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Betty Wong, and this is my colleague Emily Calving, and we're the co-founders of the Founders Over 40 Unconference, which is a month-long celebration and programming of different types of founders: those who start from scratch, those who buy businesses, those who are the brandpreneurs, and those who focus on helping society. So it's already day 4. The whole month has flown by. Today is our day focused on social impact founders who are both for profit and nonprofit founders who are doing their best to help make a difference in the world. And we're very excited to have these speakers on board to share their stories with you. So, fortunately, before we start, we have a few quick announcements. We want to thank our advisory board who helped us with there are many suggestions of how to make this unconference successful. So hats off to Professor Ed Rogoff, Elizabeth Weisel, Judy Messina, Ting John, Ramon Gill, Carlos Vassallo, Professor Jeremy Kagan, Stella Lupershore, and Jeffrey Wright. I also want to thank our great sponsors who stepped up to support us at the very last minute. The AARP Foundation, FranNet, the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Initiative, and the Global Center for Social Entrepreneurship Network Foundation. And of course, thanks to our many strategic partners, you saw their logos at the beginning for their promotion, their support, the great follow-up programming that some of them are going to be offering that will be appearing in our calendar that we'll be sharing later tonight and as we go forward this week. Without doubt, also, thanks to our team, Leslie Chen, Peter Kalbeck, Tony Palladino, Daniela Viola, Charlotte Tomic, Leslie Cabrera, and Deborah Albert. This whole Founders Over 40 Unconference would not have been possible without the involvement of all these people and their organizations. So this is the 4th day of the 4th week, and I can only say that I will give you a very brief summary of what happened last week. I'm going to do that because last week's entrepreneurs were amazing, and so are this week's. But they're also kind of like you and me. They all work for someone else, and then one day, either because they decided themselves or it was decided for them, they found themselves doing something totally different because their business became something that they could run to accommodate their different lifestyles. Our keynote featured a fireside chat with Ashton Applewhite, who realized with a little luck that her calling was to become an ageism activist and to write and talk about this topic. All the panelists had worked on stellar brand companies, American Express, Citibank, Footcomb Building, and then they found that they didn't want to stop working with others when they, quote, retired or when they left their otherwise very busy jobs working for big organizations. And so they found their way to leadership coaching for Amy Reedon, diversity management for Betty Ng, advertising services for Marcella Sala, and my personal favorite, private tour management for Gary Portesi, who gets to live in Italy and in the US and run his tour operation from wherever he likes. Our speakers are proof that if you take control of your life and you decide that you are doing what you really care about, that you can make money and help others doing it, starting off as the faces behind the brand. And now, Emily, take it away.
So welcome to our last day of the Founders Over 40 Unconference. As Betty said, for the past 3 weeks, we've been exploring the different entrepreneurial paths founders can pursue after a career working for someone else. We heard from founders who took an idea and turned that idea into a business, and founders who bought a franchise or small business and successfully grew it by building on what someone else started. And we heard from those brandpreneurs, the founders who leveraged the experience and skills they gained from working for others to build their own successful company. This week, we're talking with entrepreneurs who have founded social impact organizations to drive change. No matter what social issue is important to you, today is the day you can explore whether founding a social impact organization is the right path for you. But before we get started, I would like to introduce Mike Minatelli, National Account Relationship Manager of FranNet, who will say a few words. Mike?
Thank you, Emily and Betty. Thank you so much for allowing FranNet to participate in this great event. It's been a great month, a lot of unbelievable content, and FranNet, as well as myself, Leslie Cuban, are super appreciative to be able to participate in it. So we really want to thank you for the opportunity of talking to aspiring entrepreneurs and individuals that are looking for their next purpose. For those that might not be as familiar with FranNet, we are a 30-year-old franchising consulting company. We are actually the first of our kind. Our chairman created our entire industry. Our organization obviously has a focus on educating and guiding possible entrepreneurs and just educating them on the very misunderstood and a lot of the times overlooked franchise industry. So again, our consultants are nationwide. We have 100 across the US as well as Canada and Germany. So when somebody speaks to a FranNet consultant, they're going to have that local local presence. So they're going to know specific demographics and the area inventory on specific franchises. FranNet obviously supports all entrepreneurs, but there's definitely a correlation with individuals that are, I would say, in this viewership model. I think in the United States of America, the average age of a franchise owner is 44. As far as FranNet goes, the average placement that we have is 56. So we have a lot of individuals, just like Betty said, that are either exiting their corporate world or the job that they've had for many, many years, but yet still want to do something and may want to be an entrepreneur, but don't necessarily have an idea or a social impact that they want to make, but do want to continue to contribute to their community and bring in revenue and income for their families. And again, a lot of the times the franchise industry is an option that people overlook. So I encourage anybody that wants to find out more to please visit FranNet's website. If you hadn't had a chance to see our panel discussion with our consultant, Leslie Cuban in the Atlanta market, she is our top consultant, has worked with Betty for years and years, and she interviewed two individuals that is very much like in your shoes that were exiting the corporate world and decided to go into the franchise industry. So that panel discussion took place on October 13th. And if there's any information that we can provide for the individuals, our partners, FranNet has been very, very lucky to have great relationships like the AARP, Stage 2 startups, SCORE, small business development centers, various women, minority, and veteran-owned entrepreneur organizations. So again, we're very appreciative to be here. I hope everybody enjoys the last day of the conference and today's speakers, and hope everybody has a fantastic day.
Thank you, Mike. As Betty mentioned, we will be sending out a calendar of programs available to all our attendees, programs in November and December being offered by Stage 2 startups as well as our partners. I encourage you all to check out the events that FranNet has on the calendar so you can learn more about them and to find out if franchising is the right path for you. Now we'll move to our keynote address by Ngozi Okaro, founder of the Custom Collaborative. She'll be introduced by Emily Allen, SVP Programs of the AARP Foundation. Emily?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Betty and Emily and Mike. I'm just delighted to be part of this really important conversation about how nonprofits can drive social change and to be able to introduce our incredible speaker, Ngozi Okaro. Like our speaker today and those participating in this important dialogue, AARP Foundation is working to drive social change by helping vulnerable people over 50 really build economic opportunity. The twin threads that run through all of our programs are innovation and equity, and we are deeply committed to both. That means that as we address the root causes of poverty among older adults, we are ensuring that we are focused on issues like equity in education and employment across the lifespan. addressing access to services that help older adults not just get a job, but get a high quality job with living wages. Executing intergenerational programs like our Experience Corps program, which pairs older adult volunteers as tutors and mentors to help children who are often left behind beyond grade level reading by 3rd grade. And removing barriers to access to public benefits like SNAP and critical community services. And by giving older entrepreneurs the resources and coaching they need to launch their own businesses to increase their ability to generate income and often realize a dream, something our Work for Yourself at 50 Plus program has been doing successfully for several years now. Along the way, we build equity into every action, pursuing strategies that prioritize an equitable distribution of our services, particularly to those who have faced systemic racism and discrimination. That commitment to equity and inclusion is a hallmark of the work being done by our keynote speaker today, the founder and executive director of Custom Collaborative. Over the course of a career in social sector leadership, Ngozi has led education, social justice, and community-based organizations to identify and meet their missions. She is expert at strategic planning and operations, leadership development, and innovation. She has special expertise in mapping and managing change for growth stage enterprises. What I loved about learning more about Ngozi was that she saw a need for a program that would make life better for garment workers in New York City, most of whom are immigrants, and many of whom have been long exploited with very low pay, long hours, and insufficient breaks. The nonprofit she formed, Custom Collaborative, trains women from low-income immigrant communities to launch careers as seamstresses, designers, and in some cases, fashion entrepreneurs. They get access to skilled professionals, equipment, and marketing resources to give them the best chance of finding meaningful work that pays a fair wage. Her creative solution to an ongoing problem, coupled with her action in forming a workplace that is inclusive, supportive, and empowering, made her the perfect choice for a 2021 AARP Purpose Prize Fellowship. Every year, AARP Purpose Prize the Purpose Prize Award supports AARP's mission by honoring extraordinary people over 50 who tap into the power of life experience to build a better future for us all. I've had the good fortune over the last many years to be a reviewer for the nominees for the Purpose Prize, and I can say I am blown away every year by the talent and expertise and just amazing work that people over 50 are doing to make a difference in their communities nationwide and really worldwide. And that is really testament to Ngozi's passion, innovation, and the impact that she is having across this country. By any measure, Ngozi and her nonprofits are indeed extraordinary. And I think once you hear her speak, you will definitely agree. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce Ngozi Okaro as your keynote speaker today. Ngozi?
Emily, thank you so much for the generous introduction. I really appreciate it. And it's even more meaningful for me because, as you said, I am an AARP Purpose Prize Fellow. So again, I'm Ngozi Okaro, Executive Director of Custom Collaborative, which I founded. I'm also very grateful to Stage 2 Startups for inviting me to talk about my work and hopefully inspire others and answer questions. So we'll definitely have some question time afterwards, and definitely please put your questions in the chat window. So I will be, again, just going through a little bit about my work at Custom Collaborative. I am a fashion lover and an environmentalist. My personal fashion needs really are what prompted me to create Custom Collaborative. I actually have a hard time finding clothes off of the rack. I wonder if there are other people in the audience who've had that issue, finding clothes at the store that you like, that fit. I was fortunate to meet a dressmaker, Miriama, who made custom dresses for me and charging me less than $100 for each dress. Whenever I wore those dresses, people told me that they would pay 5 or 6 times what I paid. And so I started thinking about how much money Miriama and other women like her could earn for themselves and also expand economic impact for their communities if they could make and sell sustainable fashion. I also wanted people to feel good in their bodies. So before I go further, I just want to define sustainable fashion. Sustainable fashion is clothing that has minimal environmental and human rights harm for people, right? So as opposed to fast fashion, which we find in many stores, pieces that cost $10 or $20 or less. Fast fashion is a big environmental issue. And part of the reason that I started Custom Collaborative is because I felt that if people had high quality clothes that they loved and that fit and affirm their bodies, that we could do something about environmental degradation. So Custom Collaborative organizes people who are socially marginalized, for us, no and low income and immigrant women, and we center their solutions to the biggest social issue of our time, which again is environmental degradation. I believe that this week, even the United States Department of Defense came out with some reports stating that climate change, which is driven in large part by this environmental degradation, overproduction, is a national security issue. So the work that we do is very timely and touches us all in ways that we might not even think about. So again, the women who we work with learn, practice, and spread environmental stewardship and go on to control and own their own ethical production businesses that we hope are models for others. So I believe that if we're going to make the fashion industry sustainable, any solution must include treating workers right, and that includes people like the people that you see pictured here. If we don't focus on both human rights and environmental stewardship, then low cost and expendable labor will perpetuate the phenomena of overproduction. So what can I tell you about these people who are some of whom are represented here? The universal traits of custom collaborative participants are that they are high ambition, low income, in need of opportunity, and are courageous. I say that they're courageous because they join us through the Training Institute, which is for women aged 21 years and older. And adult learners have different challenges than those of us who might have gone straight through school. Some of the people we work with are native English speakers, some are not, some have survived domestic violence, most have children, many lead households, some are married, some are refugees, a few are college educated, some have interacted with the criminal legal system, and all of them have good ideas. And so it's really important to recognize that they all have good ideas, and all of you in the audience have good ideas, because really what we're training people for is entrepreneurship. At Custom Collaborative, we believe that sustainable fashion is a vehicle for people to exercise their problem-solving skills for the benefit of their own communities. And we need all of the good ideas if the planet is to remain habitable for humans. So I developed Custom Collaborative because society tends to overlook and undervalue them. And when a segment of society is overlooked, we all miss out on what they have to offer. We started as a social enterprise, which we remain, and organized as a nonprofit, although we have spun off a for-profit entity. We did that because I knew that in Custom Collaborative's initial years, we would need to have patient capital. That because we're preparing workforce participants. So right now, you'll hear in the news that there is a shortage of skilled workers, which may be the case. It may be that the skilled workers are not inclined to join the workforce because of childcare and other issues or low wages. But just to think about what it takes to prepare a workforce is a lot of time and money. So we started as a social enterprise nonprofit because we knew we would need to invest money in training and upskilling people, even marketing ourselves to, in this instance, the fashion industry. So Custom Collaborative operates 3 programs. Our training institute teaches business, sewing and design, sustainability, personal finance, and leadership to participants in our programs. This scene is from a class that started actually in 2020, in February of 2020. As you can see, we were then in person, and we subsequently moved in early March to virtual learning, which was new for us. But this is a representative of these are representatives of our program. Again, who are women aged 21 to 60. The second part of our work is a business incubator, which provides advanced learning, professional equipment, business leads, and work opportunities to Training Institute graduates. The incubator also provides opportunity for small and emerging designers who are not affiliated with Custom Collaborative to work with us. We can help them with sample making and sourcing and costing, and even developing their ideas. In addition to the work with our Training Institute graduates and other small and emerging designers, Custom Collaborative also produces a private line, which you can see on our site at customcollaborative.org. And then the third part of our work is Fashion That Works, cooperative development. So a cooperative business is just like any other business, except that participants, people who are workers, are also owners. So rather than a top-down structure where there's 1 or 2 people making decisions that everyone else follows, cooperative business is one in which everyone has a voice. So there are owners, most people are owners, and then there might be employees as well. Custom Collaborative sponsored the only employee-owned fashion production cooperative in New York City. This cooperative that we launched in 2020 provides greater financial opportunities through shared ownership. And there's currently 4 member owners and 1 employee. One of the member owners is here pictured, and in 2019, we were fortunate to go through a participatory management training program at Rutgers next door in New Jersey. Practically speaking, operating a business with others instead of as a sole proprietorship means that the risk is shared. It's possible to take bigger contracts, and then there's more startup investment available. One startup that just started is called the Drivers Co-op, which I commend to people who are in New York. It is a ride sharing service like Uber and Lyft, except for that it's worker owned and it pays drivers living wages. Another feature of cooperatives is that people who might not have work authorization can legally work if they're owners. And this really falls into the areas of equity and inclusion that we heard about earlier. So Custom Collaborative envisions a global apparel industry in which garment makers are fairly compensated for their labor and consumers have access to well-made, sustainably sourced clothes. We believe that by learning from and working with women while investing in their skills, education, and networks, we can see the environment for change and demonstrate a replicable model for others. Right now, we're working in the fashion industry, but again, we believe that the model that we're creating can be exported to other industries as well. So I'm sure you have many questions about how I did it, why I did it, why did I start the way that we're going right now as a nonprofit, what I foresee as the future. All really good questions. And of course, you'll want to know why I did it when I did. That was a question I heard a few minutes ago. For one thing, I decided to start Custom Collaborative when I did, because a friend and I had been talking about this idea I had, which again stemmed from my need for clothes that fit and affirmed my body and that weren't environmentally harmful. So hopefully you all have a friend or a neighbor or a family member who can be really honest with you. My friend, who is Custom Collaborative's co-founder, asked me after I'd been talking about this for a few months, was I going to start this enterprise, or was this going to be just another one of my great ideas that I did nothing about? Right. So apparently my friend thought that I had a proliferation of good ideas that I didn't launch. And that was a challenge. It was a painful challenge, but that spurred me to do something. I was also at a workplace that was really too racist, too ethnocentric, and a little bit too misogynist. And so as I was starting Custom Collaborative, I had these ideas, I was recording these ideas, and I was, creating a workplace that I thought would be a fair and equitable and just workplace. And I was working in a workplace that was not fair or equitable or just. And it just felt like that I could not live a dual life. And so I needed to be able to work at a place that respected my values, even if they didn't align, the place didn't align with my values. And so for me, really the third reason was I needed to be able to express myself and my values. So for example, if you'll look in my Zoom screen name, it's my name with BLM, which stands for Black Lives Matter after it, and then she, her, so people understand how to address me. So within that, I'm talking about who I am, what I believe in just those several characters. And to me, that was important to be able to do. Not that I couldn't do that there, but what was really important for me was to create a space where people could be themselves and bring what they had to the table without trying to figure out what they needed to hide and how much they would be valued if they differed from the standard. So how I did it. When I say to people, the most important thing is to write your ideas down, that is because a mentor told me after I had talked to him about my ideas over the course of a few weeks, where's your concept paper? And I was like, concept paper, what are we even talking about? He's like, well, where are your ideas? They have to be on paper. How can we interact and engage with them if they're not written down? And so I thought about that, and I love to read and I love to write. And so I went back, and then the next week brought him my concept paper. But that was so important for me to write down what I was thinking, because then it allowed me to share them with, as you can see, focus groups and task force and advisors. But without seeing my ideas on paper, people were just hearing things and thinking about them maybe, but they didn't have the structure that I had in my head. And they didn't know what impact I wanted to have and they weren't able to connect me with people because they would then have to be involved in this game of telephone where I'm saying to them, this is what I think, and they're interpreting or reinterpreting it and saying it to other people. So I would say that writing my first concept paper was really revolutionary for me. And at one point I was updating it, every 3 or 4 days, and even keeping my prior versions. But as I saw what I'd written down and I reread it and read it out loud and talked to other people, then it occurred to me that I had more ideas and I need to share it with other people. In fact, I will share this really embarrassing thing that my husband, who I live in the house with, did not even know what I was talking about or doing until I showed him a concept paper. So I had this idea that was very important to me, and years later it has become very important. He's my main cheerleader and a great business advisor, and I hadn't even told him about what I was doing. So it was really important for me to write it down on paper. Once I did that, I was able to form focus groups. The first focus group was talking to women, some of whom had admired the clothes that I wore, talking to them about, well, how much would you pay for a dress that you can wear? We would say desk to dinner, but like a daytime and evening dress. How much would you pay for a dress that's custom fit to you? So it was really important as I went back to my concept paper to think about, well, if I have this idea about how we can start these businesses, to line up people who might be customers for the business. My co-founder and I also created task forces, which were small groups of people who would help us think about curriculum. They would help us elucidate custom collaboratives values, that would help us think about how we would get capital, where it would come from, what our social mission should be, and what other groups we wanted to align with. That was very important for us. We had 5 task forces. And again, of course, I shared my concept paper with them. And also, it was really, really important, and continues to be important, to have advisors. For Custom Collaborative, advisors are volunteers who have expertise in certain areas. My background is as a lawyer, as a person who worked in and led nonprofits, and I worked in fashion for a couple of years, a couple of decades ago. So I knew that in order to have more information about how to design curriculum, how to connect with fashion companies and manufacturers, that I would need to have a circle of advisors around us. We, with task forces and advisors, laid out what we wanted them to do, and advisors work with us for like 2 hours per quarter. But it was really important to be able to say to people, we are organized, we want your support, this is how we need your support, and this is how you can help us. And I would say probably almost as important as writing down the ideas on paper was to listen to people's feedback. And I said, listen to people's feedback and hear people's feedback. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to incorporate all of their feedback, but it's really important to listen to what people are telling you. I'm very academically oriented, so even some of the ways that I write about things and talk about things gets very much into the weeds that everybody might not be interested in. And so then to get feedback from people that might have been saying, oh, can you put this in a simpler form? When do you think that you would do this as opposed to this part of the business? Even made me say, oh, you know what? I need to have bullets and charts with some rough timetables. So it was really important to listen to people's feedback from all areas. I can say that we listened to people who came from fashion backgrounds, people who are promotional writers, people who are grant writers, even consumers. It was really important to hear what these people had to say because I recognize them as stakeholders in Custom Collaborative's work. It was also really important for us to find out who would be our initial participants. And so even thinking about how our training institute is hosted by Riverside Church. When my colleague and I were first going through to see a potential classroom, we'd said, oh, we're going to have our hours, our training hours be 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. And one of the people who worked at Riverside, who was in facilities, who was giving us the tour, pointed out that people who have small children, school will generally start at 8 or 8:30, so they wouldn't be able to be with us at 8:30. So we said, okay, well then we're going to start at 9, but it's so important to listen to feedback, even if you haven't asked for the feedback, but just to have your ear to the ground and listen to everyone's perspective. And of course, the most important perspective to listen to for Custom Collaborative was the perspective of women who are participants in our program, so the people who would be potential participants. If I go back to Mariama, who was my initial dressmaker, when I talked to her about what she would look for in a program, I said to her, would you want bookkeeping? And she said, oh yes, when she was in Guinea, she had a bank account, she had 9 people working for her. And so there are certain things that she would need. And so it's been really important to listen to participants talk about what it is that they're looking for as we design our program. And just like we would with any other customer, we absolutely talk to them about what they need, how we're meeting their needs. And we do that through conversations and regular surveys. So it looks like we have some questions coming up. And so I just want to thank you for listening to this part of the presentation today. And I look forward to answering questions and hearing your comments. Let me just see. So wow. So that is a good question that we have. What mistakes have people made and what would they do differently? So thinking from the perspective of a business owner, things that Custom Collaborative has done well and that we struggle continuously with our participants is pricing. Sometimes people feel like what they price a product at should be what they would pay for the product, which is absolutely wrong, right? If you have been shopping potentially at a dollar store, or if you have very little disposable income, but you're selling a leather belt, you might not be your customer. And so in the same way that Custom Collaborative during our focus groups talk to people about what price they would pay, it's important to do market research. And so that could be looking at websites, it could be talking to potential customers, it could be any number of things, but you must do market research. And we feel like that is something that people have struggled with. I would say another thing that people are challenged with is getting deposits from people, right? But it's really important to get a deposit from a potential customer. One, you need to see that they are invested in this work and that they're going to come back and pick up the work that you did. But also, it's really important to make sure that you have your cost to start out on the materials that you need for your project. So those are some things. And so as you can see, they're both around money. And so that is part of why Custom Collaboratives work in preparing people for entrepreneurship is doing some personal finance coaching for individuals. Oh, well, that's a great question, Adam. Were there moments when I didn't think that I would make it, and what kept me going? So I don't think I had one of those moments yesterday, but I'm certain that I've had one of those moments this week. I think that most people will say that entrepreneurship is a roller coaster, which it 100% is. There is good news and there's bad news, and then there's lots of busy work. Some of those things might happen all in the same day. Um, so in the moments when I felt like this wouldn't work, a lot of those, unfortunately, would be when it was really still and really quiet, which would probably be around midnight when I was in bed, right? And so knowing that I had to get some sleep and that whatever issues I had could wait the few hours until the morning, um, one thing that I really did was follow some breathing techniques that Eric, my husband and breathing coach, um, taught me. Another thing is to really look to the future. So for me, when I created Custom Collaborative, because I'm a strategist, I had things planned for where we would be in 3 years and 5 years and 10 years. And so as I look at, a piece of paper from New York State saying we've messed up our unemployment filing with using the wrong number, like that is frustrating, right? Because I know there's going to be a bureaucracy that we have to go through and it's going to take some time. But I also know that this is not the moment that we're living for. We're living for the moments when women have gotten apprenticeships and when they have jobs and when they have products that they're going to sell in our holiday marketplace. We live for the moments when we know that we are making a transformational impact on the climate through the fashion industry, right? So it's about looking at the long haul. We're living for the moment when we have our own space that's 5,000 square feet, not a space that's not ideal, and when we're separated in two different spaces for our offices as we are now. So I would say those are the things that definitely continue to give me hope. And then of course, my own personal faith brings me definitely through many moments. So thanks so much for asking that, Adam. There is a question about what geographies are we currently operating in. We're currently in New York City. We have two physical locations. One is in East Harlem and one is in West Harlem by Columbia University. Women who come to us and men come to us through the incubator as well. People who come to us for business training and consulting and counseling come from all 5 of New York's boroughs, as well as counties outside of New York City and New Jersey. I think that we might have had someone from Connecticut before, but right now we are in the New York City region. And so great question, Pamela. Have we worked with people who are differently abled and people who can work only a few hours a day? Yes, we do work with people who are differently abled. We work with people who have both physical and intellectual disabilities. We are proud to try to accommodate as many people as we can, because again, people, everybody has value, everyone has skills and ideas, and we want to make sure that within our capabilities, we can work with people who have different needs and abilities. We look forward to the day that we have one complete space, because part of our facility right now is not accessible to people who might have aids, mobility aids. So I'm seeing another question from Sheila. And so thank you all for so many great questions. This is really good for me to be able to answer your questions, because your questions might be different from what I talked about. So thank you so much for asking questions. And so Sheila says, from what you described, the program is only available during the day. What if someone needs to work a day job in order to support themselves? Is there any possibility of an evening or weekend program? I did not set this up, but absolutely, we want to work with people who have no availability during the day. Right now, we are constrained, one, by budget. And so like, actually, let me just say like everything by budget. The spaces in which we're located, our training institute is not located in our own space. So we have a great landlord who accommodates us as much as possible, but we do not have access to the space 24 hours. In addition to wanting to accommodate people who have jobs in the daytime or who are differently abled, we also want to be able to offer training in languages other than English. Again, we're constrained by our finances, so we have one lead instructor role right now, and that person, that role teaches only in English. Custom Collaborative's ambition is to raise a $5 million plus investment so we can expand our offerings to meet the needs of the community. We have literally turned away people who have day jobs that are relatively low paying, like a security guard, saying like, do not quit your job. You have a job that is near living wage. And so we don't want you to foreclose that opportunity, but we would love to be able to train people in the evenings. We would like to be able to train people in Spanish, in French Creole, in a number of other languages, but we don't have the ability to do that right now because we have limited funds. Again, the people who are in our training program receive a stipend when they're training with us. So that is an expensive part of the program. So the expense of the space, the instructor, and more payments to participants means that we can't meet all the need, but we desperately want to. So thank you again, Sheila. So Emily had a question. Did I feel that it was important to have a partner, and did our skills complement each other? Absolutely. Very important to have partners. We have many partners at Custom Collaborative, some for recruitment, like WIN and Hope Community, some for placement, like the Hat Shop and Mara Hoffman and others. And then some who are funding partners. We just learned yesterday that our great new partner, Chanel, will be funding an entrepreneurship program for us. HIG, the sustainability organization, is going to help us fund a corporate sustainability fellowship program, as is Eileen Fisher. So it's really important to have partners for funding, for publicity, for skills gaps, and for placement. Right now, programmatically, Custom Collaborative does not offer case management or social work counseling. That's not our expertise, but we're fortunate to partner with places like Columbia University and Riverside Church and others who can provide that. So partnerships are extraordinarily important. So Lee asked, did you receive any funds or donations at the beginning to start your business? Yes, we absolutely did. Like most startup businesses, the founder, me, started with a $30,000 investment. At that point, I was an anonymous donor and said to other people, we have a match from an anonymous donor. And so if you give a certain amount of money, the anonymous donor will match that in $2,500 increments. This was actually my co-founder's idea, and we went about $5,000 past what I was comfortable with, but we were on a roll, so that's what we did. So I put in 30,000, we got 30,000 matched from others, including New York Women's Foundation, and again, Eileen Fisher Foundation. And then we got other small gifts and donations, not just of money, but also of textiles and equipment, because there's a lot of textile waste in fashion companies. And so we got them to donate materials to us so we could train people without having to buy new materials, and by showing a fundamental tenet of upcycling and recycling. So it was really, really important for us to get donations. And those people, I look back at as our founders and people who really believed in this idea and helped to launch it, because they believed not just in what I was talking about, but they believed in the possibility of women and believed in innovation and how much we could change things if we tried some different opportunities. So thank you so much. And then there was a question again about why I chose to start as a nonprofit rather than a for-profit business. And again, it's all about patient capital. Starting as a for-profit, there wasn't really a way to make a profit off of training people, especially low-income people, because we would be then charging them for training. So we instead wanted to make sure that women understood the value of their time and their skills. And so we paid them for training. So we followed and created really a workforce development model, which is nonprofit, of paying people, incentivizing them to train. Again, we have spun off a for-profit, which is Fashion That Works Production, which is a group of women who have their own business. And cooperative business is something that we believe in very strongly. And so that is a for-profit, and we might separately have another for-profit arm of Custom Collaborative, probably organized as a B Corp. But it was really important for us to organize as a nonprofit in order to obtain patient capital. So let's see. Do I have any final words of advice for listeners? And so my final piece of advice would be, again, to write your ideas down and to share them with people you trust. Sometimes when I encourage people to write down ideas, they say, well, like, somebody might steal my idea. It's possible that someone could try to duplicate your idea, but the idea that you have, part of it is possible because you yourself are the person who will launch the idea. And so you can share an idea, like somebody could say, oh, I have an idea for, again, a ride sharing platform. I could think I could copy their idea, but I don't really know how. Somebody else is doing it. How would I do it better? I don't know, and I don't want to put that much thought into it. So I would say, please write your ideas down, share them with the people you trust. You don't have to necessarily stick to everything that you had in your first idea. You can iterate and accept feedback and learn and grow, but make sure to have your ideas and to take care of yourself. I created a rule in 2019 that I wasn't going to work on Sundays because I was working every day. And so now I've pretty much gotten that down, and I've gotten myself down to a half day Saturday, but it's really important to take care of yourself because you can only pour into others when you are full yourself. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today.